Okay, now the government has us.
Okay, good.
Well, at any rate, yeah, I reached out to harass you because basically I'm making a homage film about the great Ed Wood, and I was just making like a original type film. But going down this journey, I met and discovered a lot of people who kind of knew him, and I was like, well, there needs to be maybe a documentary also about this guy. So I'm kind of doing a mixed bag that's also a film, and also I've another German I've interviewed is named Bob Creamer, and he's like the official biographer of Bela Lugosi. Uh,
Okay.
and um, my rant here to get you started is, let me see here. My apologies.
No, I mean, I could start talking without a question.
Oh yeah. Well, that's what I love about you too, is I just figured, well, I'd love to hear your opinion and bash on Hollywood and
I mean, you know that when they named me Edward at that time, where the new Edward or whatever, when it came up years ago, um, I have to say I always protected him, right? And I said, look, Edward had not that opportunity what I had. Like I had big actors, and I had, of course, I did films for $60,000, but I did also was in the name of the king a film of 60 million bucks. So I definitely was able to pull more money out of the system and to make more films and different films of different genres with different budgets. And he had to create something um, based on nothing, just the fantasy. Like, and I think I had that maybe also with my German Fright movie, was my very first film, where you have to think like, okay, we don't have a new studio, but let's put a map behind a guy on the wall and he has a suit on. Now it's a news studio, right? And then at whatever, we don't have an airplane, but if you just grab that thing and we never show it, it looks like you're sitting in an airplane and you move a little on a chair, like with the right sound and maybe some lights out of the window, we can fake it that it's an airplane cockpit. And it's so much harder to make something what people watch, or what in Edward's case turns into cult films also, based on the films, but also how he did it. And um, that shows something. I think when in general, when things turning into cult, then there was something more to it as the just technical level you see when you just watch a film, you know. And I think that was the great thing with Edward. And I think the Tim Burton film, of course, also showed that very good, that there was a real heart to it and an obsession. And this kind of, I think he had that disease, what we all have, maybe not anymore in the film industry, but what we had basically when we started, like we were obsessed by making films and we were never thinking about the success. It was this kind of like, I hope it's successful, but if not, I have no other choice. I need to do it, and then I see what will happen. So I think that's the most important thing to that his name is still around and that he's like known worldwide. That speaks for itself in a way.
Really, really good. Yeah, I couldn't agree more because like I was always like, John Waters obsessed and Lloyd Kaufman obsessed, and in this day and age, because it's digital and everything has a camera on it, I guess to date myself a little bit, like I grew up in the 80s, so still like pre-internet, but I guess I was kind of getting at is like, yeah, you brought up a good point about how you made stuff on like a shoestring budget or stuff with, $1 million budget. And what's lasting is, like I said, you're really beloved in Tromaville and stuff who love cinema because they see uh you know, the real heart and things in your films too. And like, would you say that I you kind of touched on this, but like, yeah, about Ed Wood, here he is. He's been dead since the
40 years.
70s, and we're still talking about him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that is the thing, that's what I'm missing. I'm missing in the last few years when I stopped making movies after Rampage 3, 2016, I didn't saw a way to get any money anymore to actually make a film based on the blockbuster video desk, and the video stores went under, the DVD and Blu-ray revenues went to nowhere. And so now you had to, this great freedom, what everybody says, the streaming, but it's not, because they pick what they want, and they pick in a way the system films, not the outcast films. And I hoped, with Netflix was in a way my only hope, that they will go more for the Mavericks, that they go more for horror, more for genre, that they treat this genre nice, because Netflix started as a DVD company, right? So, and that turned out to be wrong. I think now Netflix made a huge turn in the last 4 or 5 years to, they're just the same like everybody other streamer, just with way more product. It's not like, I mean, from time to time, like Squid Games or whatever, we have some great stuff from outside of the US at Netflix, and other streamers just don't do that. And that's the good thing. And I watch a lot on Netflix, I cannot deny it, but they didn't really help in the independent films to survive. They didn't help uh, in any form, like this kind of outsiders have a voice and we give them a shot. That rarely happens. They basically only try to get the same actors and the same directors who were already in the major system, and then they totally overpay them. And I mean, if you don't have theatrical revenues and no home video and no pay-per-view, and all of this is gone, then it's very hard for me to see that it makes any sense to make a $200 million action film with The Rock, and I just stream it there, and after 3 weeks it's disappeared, like from the timeline, basically, when you watch. I mean, most of the people, I think 80%, they did a poll, 80% never move far away as the top 10 in all the sections. So if you're not in the top 10, you're nowhere. I would bet like The Irishman from Scorsese has under 100 views a day now.
Yeah, you gave a really good breakdown of, I think it was an Apple TV movie. It had George Clooney and Brad Pitt, and you talked about how the audience isn't stupid enough to go for these. Like, you can't just put big stars in something and expect people to like it or watch it. And Bob Creamer, the Bela Lugosi documenter, he told me he spent 4 days with Ed Wood in real life in like the late 60s, because he was doing this Bela Lugosi stuff.
Yeah.
And he said no one at that time, was reaching out to Ed Wood, so he got to know him. And he has like recorded tapes of Ed Wood. And these tapes were actually then used by Larry and Scott and Tim Burton when they made their film. He was like a consultant on their movie. And he's
Yeah.
telling me that Ed Wood truly believed that he was the kindred spirit of Orson Welles, and that he created an alternative cinema, and that he didn't want to go in the front doors of Hollywood. He wanted to go in the back doors, because that was like his people, and who he resonated with, and things like that. So like, with your films and your actors, how do you feel like you can like relate to that, I guess, if that makes sense, or the parables?
I think Ed Wood, But I think Ed Wood lied there too, right? So I mean, of course, you want to make your situation better as it was, you know. And I think he had to lie to himself too to keep believing and keep doing stuff. And in a way, there are parallels. I mean, you cannot compare Orson Welles with Ed Wood, but there are kind of parallels, even with Orson Welles and me, because he was also not loved by the system. You know, I mean, after Citizen Kane, he should have basically a card to shoot whatever the fuck he wants till he's dead, right? So, I mean, that's the thing, but it didn't happen to him. It happened to Stanley Kubrick, you know, where they kept giving him A-list features and A-list money, even if he got more and more complicated with films like Ice White Shot and went way over budget in a lot of films and so on. And Orson Welles, in the very end, you know, when he did when he basically did more like tales, where he was telling stories he wanted to make films out, like when he was playing Captain Ahab in a little short film, where you know, like, and you feel like, wow, that he would be a great Captain Ahab. I mean, Gregory Peck was perfect for it, but the Moby Dick thing, how he's talking about it, so that I think he was a total genius. I'm a big Orson Welles fan, and he got let down by the system because he didn't really fit in, and he also was not this kind of you had the feeling like he's not a sellout. He's like this kind of, you know, what's different now when you see like the big directors who survived and are still big in business, like Ridley Scott, Martin Scorsese. They are good directors, absolutely, but Ridley Scott was always a system player. He was always a high-end commercial director, and he came from commercials, so he's knowing what he's doing, and he's very clever, you know, but he was never in a way a real writer, author, filmmaker. He's just a good director and producer. And I think Martin Scorsese is, of course, absolutely legend, and he was and is a great filmmaker in all aspects. But he also had that luck that all the big superstars always want to play with him, so he could get a lot of controversial or strange films made. You know, like Flowers of the Killer Moon or whatever. I'm not a big fan of that film, but that got only made because he had De Niro and DiCaprio, who basically blind. If he calls, they're in. You know, so, and I think that's the thing. It's like, but people like Orson Welles, Robert Altman, or people like this, they were never really a huge fit into the system, and they got like problems in their careers a lot of times to make another film, or Cronenberg, David Lynch. They have tough times, you know, to get a movie done, especially in the last like 20 years already.
Yeah, it's coming up on it is like the 30th year anniversary of the Burton Ed Wood film. Do you like that one? What do you think about that film?
No, I mean, I liked the film because it made me emotional about Ed Wood. It worked the way he did it. But was it real? Was it realistic? Was it the real Ed Wood story? I don't really think so. You know, it was more the Johnny Depp show in a way. And that's, but I still admire him that he did that film. Who would give who would be able, what other director would be able to get a real big budget, get a superstar at that point to play a C movie director who is known more in the like, I mean, everybody who knows about films knows him, but the wide audience, I think, had no clue who Ed Wood was till Tim Burton made that movie.
No, it's a really good point. That's kind of going down this rabbit hole, interviewing, authors and fans and directors and stuff. That's kind of like the overall theme I got from like the Burton movie is like kind of eternally optimistic. And that's what this Bela Lugosi biographer, Bob Creamer, told me, that like Ed Wood was like just super optimistic. And then I think people forget how prolific of a writer he was. He told me a story that Ed had a script, but he had four different scripts because he wrote it in different genres to be able to get it to sell, type thing. Uh, and he told me a story about like it seems like it's very pre all this stuff with Indiegogo and things like that. That Ed Wood would shoot some of the movie and then have like come meet the cast and have lunch with the actors, and then he would take the money from that like event and then go get some of the other than the movie filmed and stuff like that. And I was just thinking like, wow, kind of like really ahead of his time with certain stuff like
Yeah,
that. Um,
crowdfunding,
yeah,
basically.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, what do you think? I guess I'd like to hear more of your opinion, I guess, on Orson Welles, because Bob Creamer told me, and there's another author I interviewed named James, I'm gonna butcher his last name, Pontilio, and he wrote about Ed Wood's war record and how like really a lot of it is fictionalized. He was in the army and stuff, but a lot of the whole like running around in undies and Angora and stuff like that was kind of fictionalized. So, what like kind of like Orson Welles or Ed Wood inspired like you as a storyteller or things like that?
I mean, Orson Welles, definitely. I cannot say that Ed Wood, in a way, inspired me as a storyteller or filmmaker. I didn't grow up with his films. I also was way later aware. You know, I grew up, as you said, like the 80s. So I was all about horror, like from Halloween, Mother's Day, Man Eater, all that stuff, Fulci, and of course, Romero, uh, because at that time for me to go to the movies was this kind of like uh, I really want to get grabbed into something else, you know, like and not like I was totally not into the European art house world, you know, like Fassbinder, Ingmar Bergman, Truffaut, whatever. I watched this stuff later when I was 30 maybe. I started watching Antonioni films, Fellini films, when you really dig into the film history. But as a 15 to 25 years old, it was all about genre for me. And it was like the Klapperschlag, like the Escape from New York. If you would ask me when I was like 20, what's your favorite director? It was Carpenter for me at that time. The Thing, no matter whatever he did, I really liked the films, you know, and maybe Walter Hill. I recently watched The Warriors again. So, you know, like stuff like this, the early, like this kind of rougher action stuff. And, but Orson Welles, I will not forget when I watched Citizen Kane. It was in TV. It was not in a movie theater, and I watched it in TV. And uh, you got the feeling it's kind of pretentious in a way, you know, like when because it aged, of course, after a while, but there were a few things uh, they stick with me forever till now, where you get this kind of, I mean, the Rosebud thing, whatever that, what it means is time goes by so fast for me, right? So, and we have it now, you have it, I have it, that you feel like when you get older, you feel like, wow, that run by very fast and then it's over and you cannot change anything. And then also, like, if you have money or not, it doesn't really make the big difference. In the very end, we all die, you know. So, and that really, I think he made that point. And of course, the thing where he finished the article about his love interest, shitty opera singer. And you know, he fired Joseph Cotton, and then he finished the article and trashed her into the ground, right? And that was for me also very important. That because that showed to me that very deep inside he knows that he only bought all of this, you know, and then he kind of cleans himself out with it in being not able to now keep lying that she's a great singer and it is a big success, whatever, you know. And that showed a little from his side. I think this kind of honesty. There was a little honesty left in the person. That was like for me very like deep sinking scenes, and you don't have that so much. You know, I had that in the Ambersons too, where I think it was Bette Davis in that film. The what was the name? The Ambersons, also from Orson Welles. Uh, Wait, I will find it quick.
There you,
And
I'll look right now.
yeah, it's Orson Welles, and there was where are the stars? Richard Bennett. And
Mr.
Baxter.
Arkadin? No.
The Magnificent Amazons. The Magnificent Amazons from Orson Welles. It's with Joseph Cotten also. And
The Magnificent Ambersons, 1942.
yes, so
Yeah.
yeah, so there was another one. And uh there was also one scene where totally like, so the mother was very possessive of the daughter and whatever, that she didn't do anything. And then at one point the daughter broke free, she's in the train, she's leaving, and then the mother comes into the train in the last second and tells her like, I was completely wrong, like go out there, enjoy your life, talk to people, see the world, whatever. So she basically in then 1 minute did the 180 basically, right? But it came so natural because she felt otherwise now the daughter will leave me, she will never come back because she hates me so much that I always were like too protective of her. That was also like, so I think Orson Welles was kind of a master in, besides himself as an actor too, but like a master in this kind of putting the importance where the importance has to be in the film, you know, where it's not side, it's like sometimes sidetracked, you don't even know what's going, but then it hits it. And I think that is why I really like him. Also Othello and all the other stuff, F for Fake. I'm as I said, a big Orson Welles fan. I think he was one of the few absolutely geniuses in the history of film. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of the, when you're talking about the movies you grew up to and genres, I can relate a lot too, because I do love Romero. Some art house European is okay, but I can really relate because I was, when I discovered Lucio Fulci, when I started to get into like adulthood, um, I really liked his movies. And what I always found kind of like funny is he seemed to hate actors or hated actors, even though he's a director, you know, guy making movies. And to kind of tie this around with Ed Wood, there's that famous scene in Bride of the Monster where Bela Lugosi does it in like one take. And
Yeah.
then in the Burton film, you know, they're like, "Oh, you want to do another take?" And he's all, "No, it's good. You know, we got it." How are you like in the trenches as a director with that stuff? Do you trust people you hire? Do you are you hands on or?
It depends, right? So it's, I think, um, if you do a film, let's say a pure genre film, where like Alone in the Dark, Blood Rain, or whatever, where a lot of stunts, special effects, blood effects, and all that is involved, you have less, of course, possibilities to spontaneously change stuff. You know, you can change a line here and there, but you cannot just say, the big battle we just prepped, we're not doing, you know, like stuff like this. That would be insane. And that's the thing with this clearer genre film, House of the Dead, and so on. But when I have something like Rampage, in the Assault on Wall Street, or Darfur, or this kind of films, there I give actors way more freedom. You know, there we do a blocking, they can do whatever they want and like do their version to me. And then I decide like, that makes sense also in regards, because some actors, they're not so good in thinking about the scene, what comes right after or what went before. You know, when they're in the scene, they want to do it this way, and then you think, yeah, but to be honest, like the other scene we shot already, and you were totally different dressed, whatever, like stuff like this. And that's the thing where you, of course, as the director, I think you have to have the big picture more in your head. But I like it to give actors also the possibility to change lines, to change also reactions. You know, sometimes you have stuff what is very like on films like this. Where it's written this way. I did it on First Shift, that film what is right now out in the US on Paramount Plus and streamers and Showtime and so on. On this saying, Gino and Kristen, they did so much, the two actors, the main actors, so much improv between them as cops driving in a car, you know. And I think that made the movie way better as it would be without all of this. And it also brought them closer together as a cop couple, basically, right? So, and I basically told them, look, when we go from whatever mafia killing 1 to suicide 2, and you are in the car, just think what you just saw, and then like you can say whatever you want, basically, right? And I see what I use from it. So they loved that too, to have that flexibility. And I think that one of the better or really good dialogue exchanges, they were basically improv in the film, you know. And then I'm not like insisting on you say it exactly how I told you, and that's I think that's kind of crazy, you know, when on Eyes Wide Shut or Kubrick, like where Harvey Keitel quit, for example, right? So, and I can totally understand him, you know, like when you're in a situation where I think he played the pool billiard there or whatever, and it was like after 30 takes, he was like, okay, I mean, what the fuck, you know what? I just cannot do it anymore, and that also. I'm more a person. My line producer Dan Clark, who I did a lot of films with, he was before assistant from Clint Eastwood, you know, and he said basically, I shoot similar to Clint Eastwood. If something is good after a take or two, moving on, right? So, and it's not like we have to now focus for the next 5.5 hours on this special eye shot, you know, like and I heard Spielberg is similar. They moving on. They make they are not like this kind of we do 35 takes. If something works out, there's no real reason to shoot it 5 times. Then you can do it 2 times, 3 times, and you go forward, you know.
Yeah, is that what you think makes like film, like the art, like more of an organic process? Because like yeah, I was born in '84, and so that's when Toxic Avenger came out, and I didn't see it as a baby, but you know, I grew up and learned from that, you know, make your own damn movie type attitude, where it seems like you have to be more flexible in this medium, as opposed to like, yeah, you must do it exactly like this, like a stage play type demanding performance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See, also, I think that was the thing what I felt with uh, this kind of where now directors go to, or what's now required to be a successful director in the streaming world. I think as we see, there are no more names basically attached to. I mean, nobody knows who's the director of an episode of Andor or you know, or The Mandalorian. It looks like it's now the showrunners who are basically the filmmakers, and the director or executive producers, they are all second tier, like they are not really matter. And then they have to like just fulfill what the showrunner tells them. And yeah, I mean, it kind of devalues the job of a director, you know, because as a director, you are the person who work with the actors to make it happen. and of course you have to look into the script, but you also have to like bring the actors in the mood or in that situation that they can perform, you know. So, and I feel like everything now is, in a way, what happens now is that some production companies, they're getting all the shows, they're getting like a lot of times attached also with actors. A lot of superstar actors have, for them it's easy to raise money, it's easy to get directors attached, other actors attached, so they're getting huge deals with streamers to produce stuff. And I think that, for example, George Clooney, Matt Damon, this kind of clique, Ben Affleck, these guys, they are all very good, right? So I mostly all the films they do, I don't feel these are really bad films or something, right? That they are mostly good films, entertaining films, but they're not great films. You know, they're not like extraordinary like films you never get. They're just like high-end, expensive, and they pocket huge amounts of money for it too, because the streamers just shelve it out, right? And they are not like, the edge is off this kind of films. You know, they have to fulfill all that diversity riders and all the whatever. Oh, this we cannot say, this you cannot say. Here we need a person of color playing it. All that stuff, you feel that in all that films, that these are all the decisions you have to, if you want to shoot a TV series for whatever, for Amazon or Apple or whatever, you have to fulfill all that criteria. And all of this, when we started making films, there was never a discussion about all of this, zero. Right? There was not a discussion who you have in your crew or who you hire as an actor, or zero. There was like, you want the best possible crew, best possible actors to make your film. And when you wrote it, you didn't wrote it in a way like, oh, I have to make sure that we have Chinese people in it, whatever, right? You never did that. You just wrote a script, and that was it. So, and I feel all of this is one of the reason why, when you compare the last 15 years, the Oscar nominated films with, from the, especially where you're coming from and me coming from, I mean, where we grew up, this like 15 to 20 years in the 80s and 90s was the best time of film in the history of film. You know, and the edgiest stuff, the most political relevant stuff, the where all that actors who are now superstars growed, you know, and there were no superstars after them. So, you know, it's not like you have a new De Niro or new Pacino and new Stallone and Schwarzenegger and all that, also action stars and so on. They are not, we have very good actors now, but you don't have them. You know, you have now like side actors in all kinds of shows, and you know them only as supporting actors. All that, you know them from The Sopranos, whatever, you know them. But they were never like Harvey Keitel or Christopher Walken, who also now supporting actors, but they were lead stars in the 80s and 90s. And they did films where they got Oscars for, because they can act, they're really good, right? So, and then, I mean, whatever, Taxi Driver, The Piano, and that was different. And the filmmakers had more leeway. They had more, like, you could have an Abel Ferrara, but you could also have the younger Scorsese with Taxi Driver. You could have the younger, you know, like where everybody started. I mean, Duel or Jaws are still, for me, the best Spielberg films. You know, so, and all that money and all the CGI later, yeah, he pulled out a lot of masterpieces, Schindler's List, Private Ryan, is all very good films, right? So, but I think Jaws is the most, like, under, as we all know, the circumstances he did Jaws under, when if you have only like a plastic shark or whatever, what you got out of this setup is still unseen. It's still 10 times better as today, where everything is CGI, you know. So, and really with a wood shark, And that's the thing. I think that was the time where directors really were able to do, like when they convinced the studio to do it, they had free range. They could do it the way they wanted, and The Godfather, and then Apocalypse, and now The Deer Hunter. I mean, the films were endless, like French Connection, whatever. All these films are 10 times better as everything done in the last 15 years.
Really, really good. Yeah, I liked your points too about everything's kind of like whitewashed. Like when you watch, like you made me think of like Kathy Bates, who is in a lot of like Ryan Murphy TV shows, and I think
Yeah.
the younger generation don't know that. Like, I grew up Kathy Bates as an actress in the 80s and 90s, winning stuff and being in these movies you mentioned and things like that. And like, yeah, it's a really, really good point because while some of these television shows are like really shot well like a film, you don't like look up, oh, who directed episode number 4562 in such and such show. uh yeah, God, I miss the 90s.
Yeah, and that was also a time where you waited for the next Carpenter film, and it meant something. And that's now, like that's the problem now in a way, right? Who directs Fast and the Furious Part 10? I'm sure that guy makes millions per film, but he's not an important director. I mean, it's not like that they really score with it in a way, and I think now you have a lot of Michael Bay's. Michael Bay was lucky that when he started was early on, so he basically has the name based on all the films he did with all that stars and all the money in the world. So he made himself like this blockbuster director. But today are a lot of Michael Bay's with the same abilities, with even more CGI, whatever involved. But nobody gives a shit about them because they are just exchangeable. They couldn't make a name for themselves, So that's the thing. I mean, it really went away from the filmmaker director world to a real producer showrunner world where algorithm technicians talk to lawyers and they talk to like the data, and then the data says we should do that, so let's do this. Now we hire people to do this who will not have their own vision, where we just say, look, that is the pre-visualization in AI for the whole show. Look at this. Now we just shoot that.
Well, yeah, it kind of makes me wonder what Ed Wood would be like in this day and age, or what he would think of his biopic. Uh, what would you think if someone made a U-Bowl biopic, or what would it be in there? or would you exit, say, don't make it till I'm dead, or type thing?
I don't know. And I think nobody should make a film about me in a way. Because it's not so spectacular, But no, but I mean, I'm happy that I was able to do so many films with different, also sometimes big stars, and but I also didn't have a problem to go back to independent filmmaking and do like First Shift for $1 million in New York. Like, so it's like there. I think that's the thing. What every film student should learn is you need to do basically everything on the set. Like that's the only way to. If you're a PA, you work at craft service, you do whatever. You help the grip guys, but you need to get an overall impression. That's how they make a film, and then in the end you can make a film. It's you can never learn it from getting an MBA somewhere and then working at Universal. Then you get bored and you think, okay, you know what, I know so many producers, so now they give me a shot, and then I make a film. And as you see, a lot of times I'm also amazed how much money, especially this tech companies, spending on production. When you see some products, I always say I can do that for 25% of the money, there, like the same film. So, and that's also where, of course, you see that in net studios now and in the streamers, they're not necessarily people, they know the inside of filmmaking. And for them, it's very hard to control costs, to you know, like, I mean, people who did so many films like me, whatever, I can look straight through and could say, look, that's all bullshit what you're doing here. Like, you know, like you shoot here, then tomorrow you shoot there, then you shoot there again. I mean, the ABC of filmmaking, right? So whatever, do like on one location, shoot everything you need for that whole film on a location and not come 30 days later back there and stuff like this, you know, or equipment rental, like get comparison prices, like let's negotiate them down. All the little things what producers do. I think if you get like just flooded with money, all that stuff you don't do anymore, and then everybody takes advantage of you. And I mean, that's a problem Ed Wood never had because, you know, because he had to turn the coin before he spent it. You know, he had to see like, nine, we have to get that cheaper. We have to get that for free. Or can you not convince a restaurant to give us food for free and we put them in the background? I think these are all things in independent filmmaking that is so important. You have to go through all of this to later turn into a good producer and a good director too, in a way. You know, it's way harder with mediocre amateur actors to get something out of them, as if George Clooney and Brad Pitt. You know, you don't have to like tell them how to act a scene. So it's way harder to make a good film with mediocre crew, with mediocre lighting, with mediocre cameras, with mediocre actors. And I think in that 80s, they proved that a lot. That when there's that Netflix show, I love it, like the movies they made us, where they go back in time and showed how chaotic, like Freddy Krueger, all that stuff, how the first parts, like they had no money for anything, you know, even Back to the Future and stuff like this was also a film, nobody believed it. And they had to wing it. And then it turned out like Spielberg and Jaws, right? But that turned out then way, way better as they were just flooded with money because it made them more creative and it made them more concentrated on what is really necessary here and what's just like this, oh, because we have it 500 people in the background, extras, whatever, you know, like that's the thing. And you see like all the directors who turned big, like Spielberg and co, whatever, they also started with nothing. They had to think clever as producer directors. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you just reminded me. You brought up Duel earlier, and I had to watch that in my city college like film class, and I'd
Yeah.
never seen it to then, but I was just like, wow, like, was that technically Spielberg's first film?
Yeah, I think it
Y-
was his first film.
Yeah, and just like how is made, kind of like everything we've been talking about, like something like that still holds up and is like way more watchable than some CGI the Meg shark or something like that. And it
Yeah.
makes me think of too, like they touch on this in the Burton film, and Ed Wood befriended this, I forget what denomination they were, but this church, because they were gonna donate to make Plan 9, and he had like all the cast and crew go get converted and things like that. So it's just
Yeah.
like things like that in the independent world, uh that people are willing to do to make the art, as opposed to just all the money is thrown around in the big budget stuff, and it just kind of loses its heart and soul. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And you have to write or have ideas for uh, the budget you will have. You know, like if you've, I think I'm very good with that too. Like to when I write something, whatever the stuff I write on my own, uh, I always write it for the budget I have in mind, what I can maybe raise or what I can get to do this, right? And then when people later criticize me, oh, why you didn't do blah blah blah, then that's the fact of money. You know, like where you say, look, why I should write a shootout in the middle of the city with 500 people shooting each other when I already know there will be no way that I get the money for it and I can do the scene. So then I don't write it and try to write something more clever. And I think Edward did the same, right? To where you know you can actually do this. And that will be not like impossible. And then we have to omit it out of the script after all the actors reading it. And then you have to cut it out. And then they're all mad with you, whatever, because you cannot pull it off, you know. But you see, like early David Lynch, like Eraserhead, whatever, these were all ideas where they know they can do this. Was Eraserhead Cronenberg or Lynch? Lynch, no, David Lynch. Yeah.
Lynch, yeah.
Yeah, it was David Lynch. So, and you know, and they all develop films in the beginning where they know, okay, we can do this. You know, Lucas also did American Graffiti and not like Star Wars right away. So, you know, that's the thing where I think it's important uh, to have this in mind. Like, what can I do? I see a lot of people in the independent film world. They try to do too much with not enough money. They have, I get a lot of films from people, they're looking for distribution or whatever. Here's my film, watch it, whatever. And I think a lot of times they try too big and then it collapses and fails because they just didn't have the money and the resources to film what was in that script. And then it's like it falls flat because it doesn't work, the action sucks. And then they had like, you know, like this kind of if you cannot properly script people with blood or whatever, right, then don't write a scene with 50 people getting shot. If you cannot have, it's better to shoot two people and write for two people, but they're getting properly shot and you have proper scripts and you have for a day a real armor or special effect team what can do it, and not like you have your buddies doing it for a week with all the other buddies, but then you have like trash where you watch it and you think, what the fuck, what you did there, you know, yeah. And I think that's the thing what a lot of films coming now where people use AI, and it's totally visible what is AI and what is them. You know, I saw a lot of like that mixed stuff. Then you have like whatever it looks like, Blade Runner meets Megapolis from Coppola, and the rest is total trash filmed with a cell phone. You know, and they try to pick it to do it together, and that also totally doesn't work.
Yeah, no, good point, especially like practical versus digital. I know a lot of people, they love it's kind of strange to see Terrifier
Yeah.
really popular because I wonder, well, I guess it could be made in this day and age, but like, yeah, like your film Postal, you know, it opens with the plane flying into the like Twin Towers there. And so it's just interesting, you know, I guess what's acceptable nowadays as opposed to, I guess, yeah, miss the 80s and the 90s with certain genre and just I
No,
guess like,
because they never, I think in the early years when you see when they go to the comedy field like Kentucky Fried Movie and stuff like this and Naked Gun, and they didn't ever care, they just cared about the joke and not about who you could hurt with the joke or who could hate the joke, right? When I watch comedies or watch stand-up stuff, like my wife always things like that is pervert, that is not funny, right? When I laugh only about really dirty humor, right? I like Bill Burr and stuff like this, you know, and some stand-up, but I like Hangover, this kind of comedies, like ranchy comedies or like under the belt stuff, jokes. And I think when you start now writing comedies, then I think that people are censoring themselves. And then you have, because they say, oh, I cannot write this. Oh God, it will never work again. If they say, oh my God, look what you've wrote, you know, then you start already weakening your product and not like, okay, you know, you want to have fun or not. So, and I think, but that the society did that. You know, this all kind of cancel culture stuff is now so much in their brains that nobody wants to go in a risk. So they say yes to mediocre crap where in the end nobody laughs about, because they say like, what is this? Is it a child film? Or, you know, and it's a shame, you know, Tropic Thunder, that they don't want to show the film anymore only because Robert Downey Jr. played a black guy. So who gives a fuck? You know, like really, like for me, I really give a fuck about it. And it's like, I think it's very important that filmmakers don't uh, just obey and you know, and just bend over and say, oh, it's all about the success. No, it's not. It's also like you have to stand up for your freedom to do things your way, or to say, look, that's an R-rated comedy, more for male-driven audience, you know. So, and unfortunately, they are not the same audience as whatever, a Jennifer Lawrence comedy, you know, that's too harmless for my crowd, you know. So I want to go further, like in Postal, right? So, and I think that's very important, that there's a place for this kind of comedies and this kind of political incorrectness, that this is there. But I saw it with Postal, how hard it is to try to do that second part. It's like we tried over years everything, and it never really worked. And even if it's the biggest cult movie I shot, when I go to a convention, whatever, you can say 50% of the DVDs I sign is Postal. So that means 37 movies altogether, 50%, and Postal 50%. And but it still never turned real money back. It was this kind of film what everybody watched, but maybe for free, I don't know. But it's that's a shame, you know. That's a shame that a film like this, because it has kind of a standalone quality to it. I think overall, Postal is similar important for the freedom of art, speech, humor, as Dr. Strangelove. You know, now people will flip out on me, but I think film historically, Postal was almost the last, like, totally ridiculous political satire comedy done. You know, it's really a standalone film. And if people say, oh, Ball is like too full of himself, yeah, but I watch a lot of films and I never saw a Postal again. You know, like it's I don't have a comparable film where where it's really going for it. You know, that I didn't saw something like this.
That was really good. Yeah, because it's kind of like only you could have made the best satirical political film like that. Kind of like my favorite Ed Wood movie is Glenn or Glenda, just because it's so like weird. You know, it was made in the 50s when movies like that were kind of like those educational films. And it's like, here's a guy who is a straight white male, but he makes this like really weird genre film about sex change and dressing in men dressing in women's clothing. And then there's so many opinions out there on the matter about it, you know, like gay people might love it or hate it because of the language in it, you know. And then there's Ed Wood fans who might love or hate it because there's that debate out there about like, well, if Ed Wood lived nowadays, would he really want to be a woman, or was he just a transsexual? Was he this or that? But what I love about it is it makes the person like think, you know, as opposed to telling you what to think. And so I guess that's my little rant on it, to tie it up with Postal, because it's like, yeah, only you could have made this masterpiece.
Yeah, because it was also, it had to do with, I think, and lost a lot of like crew for it, right? People I worked together a long time, they said, I'm not doing this. This is ridiculous. This is anti-Semitic. This is racism, blah, 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 you know? And I always like just countered, no, it's not. You know, I said like that's freedom. Like that is when, for me, is when you can give a fuck. Basically, then it's freedom. And there's a huge difference between being the pilot flying in the World Trade Center or making a film what parodies, for example, the terrorists, you know. And that's the thing. When I got so harshly criticized for it because of the opening, people flipped out. The theaters dumped us. You know, 1,000 theaters were supposed to play us, and then 10 played us. That was because of the in New York, also the New Jersey Film Festival. Basically, they showed us, but they basically dumped us there, and people attacked me, talking trash about me there. And I always defended myself and said, look, if you don't get it, that it's a parody of the virgins in the that idea, it's a parody about the terrorists. Because forget for 1 second that the terror act was horrible and the biggest terror act in the US with the most victims. But still, it has this absurd comedy factor to it, because the motivation to fly an airplane to get virgins when I'm killing people is so absurd that it cries for comedy, right? So, and that's the thing, you know. And I think that is with everything. Like Postal has this cult people who believe in everything. I think when the movie, when you see now how many people running after this kind of religious cult, or running after this kind of even yoga people, or, you know, or I'm your mental coach, that's Uncle Dave. And it showed it very early on how stupid these people are, because the main people just take your money and want the same stuff like we all want, like money, drugs, woman, whatever, you know, like stuff like this. And it's this kind of, I think Postal's big quality is it shows the total corruption. You know, that bin Laden is the friend from Bush and all this stuff, that it's all like, it's so absurd that Osama bin Laden lives in the US the whole time. And then, but so absurd it is, it has a lot of truth to it, you know, because we invaded Afghanistan to find out like 15 years later that bin Laden was not in Afghanistan, he was in Pakistan. You know, like stuff like this, a lot of these things, and that the bin Laden family actually did deals with the Bush family in the real estate sector. So, and that's the thing with where comedies a lot of times are way closer to the truth of also political things, as this kind of serious film. And then like 2 years later, that serious film, nobody talks about it anymore, because what is it? The chapter's closed, or it was the opposite to what that film showed me, you know. And I don't know when. Wait 1 second. I have in the US. I have to see if it's actually in it. There is this. Yeah, they released my memoirs, right, in the US in English at
Oh,
Bear Manor Media Books. And you know, I want to read, because I got some quotes from actors. And the biggest, I think, so the biggest positive quote I ever got in my whole life actually was from, I asked various actors from my film Run and to write something, right? So, and from Ulrich Thomsen, who was the lead in Festen from Thomas Winterberg, and he was in Banshee, the lead. So, and he said, so Uwe is the most fucking all of all directors that I've worked with. He doesn't surrender to people's opinion and the industry ways of doing things. When I directed my first film, I bumped into Lars von Trier at Santropa, and I boldly asked him what advice he would give a new director. He said, don't listen to anyone, and then wandered off. I know exactly what he meant. I failed to follow his advice, but I can see that Uwe has not. He's doing exactly that, and that's what gives him a unique artist voice. He also let the actors have the freedom to improvise and participate, which of course for any actor makes it so much more fun. But it also makes you humble when a director will trust all that you can add to the finished product. That was the biggest compliment I ever got in my life. And because I didn't tell anybody what to write, right? And that he reflects it on himself too. He directed also a very stuff, but it made me very proud. Not because I'm, to be honest, I think Lars von Trier made only 2 good movies. I'm not the biggest Lars von Trier fan, but the thing is, what he meant. I think don't listen to anybody. That doesn't mean don't listen to anybody. Of course, as a director, you listen to hundreds of people. But important is that you don't sell out, that you don't like cozy up and make it just commercial because you think you can make more money out of it, or because other people say you have to change that story this way and whatever. That I never did, and that I'm proud of. That when I have something to say or I have a vision of something, then I do the film the way that stays, and not like because somebody says, oh, it could be way better if you do this, or way more commercial like this. And I will do a film, The Dark Knight. You can actually use the title. It's like not Batman, but you can say Dark Knight. And it's interesting. I will do that film in January. And everybody tells me I need to change that character from the main actor, Dark Knight character, right? And because they all want that it's more like John Wick or the Equalizer or whatever, this kind of character, because they don't do wrong, right? So they are revenge guys, but positive. But that's not the film I want to tell. I want to tell my guy is torn, is doing bad things and good things, because violent acts are very close together, and sometimes you think you do a good thing and it turns out very bad. So I want to give that character in a way not a clear path. And I think the only reason I was able to write it is because of this, because I felt like I'm bored of John Wick. I'm bored of The Equalizer. Yeah, did I watch that films? Yes, but I'm shitlessly bored after part 1 on all of this franchise. It's so much. It's so easy, And in the old Charles Bronson one, where he goes for revenge because his wife and whatever the daughter was killed and raped and stuff. That was also like he was more torn. He was not only a good guy, it was like you understand what he was doing, but he also killed innocent people. And and I felt like if I want to do something like this, I want to do something like that, where you have kind of collateral damage, and where you have also this kind of, did I go too far? Do I and this kind of like, do I start enjoying this killing people who are crime bosses or whatever, like gang bosses, whatever. If I kill them all, do I enjoy this? And maybe they didn't deserve all to die. So stuff like this, and I think that's maybe not so commercial, but that will be in the end, I think, the better, more interesting film. Where you will follow, where the audience is not like, yeah, kill them all. No, where the audience is like, what the fuck is he doing now? I mean, why is he doing this? And so that's my appeal to it. Yeah.
I'm very interested. Yeah. Let's see. We've been going about an hour here, so I'll probably let you
Yeah,
go
we are
here.
almost. I have to stop soon. Like maybe 1 or 2 more last questions, and then we are done.
Okay, yeah, I'll rant this off to you and then you can tie it all together. But yeah, I like how you're talking about uh, the freedom to say what you want. And there's a kind of John Waters joke I like where he talks about, people might have discovered his hairspray or crybaby, and then they go to rent his earlier movies that are much different, and they're all horrified. And he always says, you know, if it's that bad, just turn it off. He's all, I did that when Forrest started running. And and so I just feel like that kind of related to, you know, what you were saying earlier about having the guts to, you know, like make a film like Postal and things like that and defend yourself to the naysayers. Um, oh darn it. There's one last thing I was going to add.
No, but also
But
John Waters never sold out,
yeah, no,
right?
I really like how you've been saying that over and over. You've been talking about never selling out and others who relate to that and things like that.
Yeah, but he also, it's like, it's not, but he doesn't want to like proud himself the whole time that he never sold out.
Mhm.
But it's also important to actually not do it. You know, it's like a lot of people, they told that I never sold out, but they sold out from the day one of their career. And you know, and I think what he kept is uh, that he's just a great artist besides his movies too. You know, that it's very outspoken, very on the point, and an absolute sharp analyst of society. And you know, and he I mean, as one very early on gay person, he never jumped on that bandwagon to be a victim, you know, to be a minority. He never did that, and he stayed away from this. And that was from my end also, like, I very much respect that.
Very cool. Yeah, totally agree. Okay, I guess I'll let you
You
go
have
now.
enough
But
of 5 movies and 8 podcasts.
yeah. Oh, one last thing before you go. I've been discovering, is it Fassbinder, the
Yeah,
director? Yeah,
Einer Werner Fassbinder. Yeah, yeah.
it seemed like he died early, but made a ton in a short period of time. I've been kind of fascinated by him recently. Do you
Yeah,
recommend
I mean,
I look into him?
he was he said always, I can't sleep when I'm dead, right? So he took a lot of drugs, cocaine mostly, and stuff like this, and got, I think, a heart attack in the end because he was drinking and taking cocaine all the time. But he was like, the with Herzog and Schlöndorff and Kluge, they were like the new German Nouvelle Vague, opening a completely different kind of genre in Germany, like the artist-driven political reflection of the after-war Germany. And Herzog was the outsider under all of them, but he was the same generation, right? So, but he was because he did like Nosferatu, and he did totally different films as all of them, more like kind of genre films, but in a drama, strange form. And I love Herzog more as I like the others. Um, but at that time, I think Fassbinder was by far the most important director for 10 years in Germany. Now, nobody watches the films anymore because they were really at that time important. And it's not that he has a lot of, he gets a retrospective here and there, but his films also don't run here in TV or on stream or anywhere. Um, they were very intense, you know, and um, they were kind of Berlin Alexanderplatz was the big TV show he did with Günter Lambrecht. That I liked that a lot because I think what Fassbinder was able to catch is what I saw on not my grandfather, but the brother of my grandfather. Uh, there was also, and nobody could ever talk about it, a traumatized from the war German population. But they never were allowed to be traumatized because they were the perpetrators. They were the Nazis. They were the assholes. They were the murderers, right? But they were traumatized too, and they were like saw things and were involved in things that were hunting them forever. And that's, I think, in Fassbinder's films a lot kind of visible. Uh, with Hannah Shigula and all that actors he reused over and over. And that was also this kind of, Germany was in an economic uproar after the war. I mean, after the war, you can start on zero, so it goes up. There's no way it goes further down. But then it really got this kind of Germany turned into an economic force worldwide, and with all that technology and cars and all that stuff what was developed in Germany. And but that kind of, who are we, what we did, like what did my father, all these questions, they got pushed aside. And I think he got that out of actors, and also that he got at that time in German TV good ratings with also stuff, shows that the population needed this kind of past digestion in a way. I mean, it's really, it's always like when I hear in America the people talking about the Nazi time and whatever, and me as a German, with my as I said, the brother of my grandpa, like my uncle, two uncles were in Russia. They were like for 2.5 years gone, right? I mean, I was not alive then, but my mother was alive, and they said that after 2.5 years they came back, and then they were standing there like 35 kilos only, like this kind of like, and then they were together, of course, again with my aunt and so on. And I saw them only when I was 1965 born. They were already old in a way, 60, 70, and I, as a young kid, I had no clue, never talked with them about it. But they also said, like, we don't want to talk about it. You felt like they are like haunted by the stuff, what they did and what happened to them. They were not working in the Nazi, like in a concentration camp or something. They were just in the army fighting in Russia at the front lines, but that was like unbearable, I think, for to compare that with today's, like it was a totally different situation. And I think there was in Germany a lot of this stuff. For example, the Chancellor of Germany, Konrad Adenauer, who was after the war, the Americans put him basically into place, right? And he was from the Christian Democratic Party, similar to Angela Merkel later. And he always had a gun on him. Like the Chancellor, think about it, you always have a gun on you. And that was because he was in the shit in the war and never got over it, right? Like he was like for 8 years in the trenches, and he was not sure that people want to kill him or whatever. Like, I mean, he was a very nice, calm guy, but he said that later, like, I always have a gun with me, I always have a gun with me. And there you felt like, oh my fucking God, that guy is basically totally done, right? He's a total maniac, but he was totally able for 16 years to be the Chancellor of Germany and act completely calm and normal on the political issues. But there was that deep-rooted craziness. That was the Second World War. And, and it's kind of, it's different. That's a totally different conversation. We know that we could talk hours for.
Yeah, I'd love to pick your brain. I better let you go, but yeah,
Yeah.
I love listening to that kind of perspective as well, because you're German, you're gonna know more than me. Like my mother's grandmother and that side, they're straight up from Poland, so like they left Poland during those days. But yeah, really fascinating and sad, honestly, too. Kind of like
Yeah, of course.
John
How it is.
Waters. Yeah. Oh, go
Yes.
ahead.
Yes, but that's the same. For example, now with the Ukraine war, that was my big hope. In a way, that's my big hope. What Trump will do, that he finishes that war, because other big wars started small, right? So, and when they spin out of control, then you can have another big war coming. And that's the thing, and I think that is what we have to not let it happen. And I think we're always counting on that Putin is basically this kind of logical thinking, strategic thinking guy who will never make an emotional bad decision, but he could,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
and that's the same. And that in times of like the nuclear possible completely end of the world, I think that's the wrong idea to gamble on that the opponent always plays ball, right? Because it's this kind of, if you have Iran or Yemen or whatever, like this kind of countries, they are not a real danger. You know, you can defeat that country if you want. You can just finish that war in 24 hours. It depends only what weapons you use, right? So, but it's not that they can bring the whole Europe, North America to in a disastrous fall, right? But Russia can, you know, and that's the thing. And you cannot corner somebody in a corner where he knows, okay, I have two options. I push the button or I get lynched by my own people outside of my palace. You know, so when you have somebody who can push a red button in a situation like this, and he's already older, uh, then you maybe made a fatal mistake. And I think that's the thing. What I feel is you know, the two world wars, they came together based on, they also didn't start it overnight. They came together slowly, step by step. And especially the First World War was basically an accident where that guy got shot, like the German royal guy got
Franz
shot
Ferdinand. Yeah.
in Austria, you know, and then Germany signed with Austria-Hungary before a security like that Germany will protect them if they're getting into a war. Then they went into a war, right? So they started it, then Germany jumped in, then they didn't really, then they played only the minority, the junior partner in it. And that is how Germany got into that First World War. It was not because Germany was an invasive, crazy, there was no Hitler in the First World War. You know, it was like not comparable to then the Second World War, where Hitler felt like, nah, we can beat them all, and went for it. You know, so that was a different thing, and that's a problem. You know, that makes me very feeling unsafe in regards of the politicians. A lot of politicians, they just think we have to put Putin in place and basically bomb the shit out of him. And okay, but what is if he push the button? You know, that's the thing. It's like you don't start in a bar, you don't start arguing with Mike Tyson in his prime, right? So you don't do that. So okay, let's finish it. Yeah.
Yeah. This was
Okay.
good. I really appreciate that. I'll
Yeah.
be in touch.
See you soon. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye bye.